Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners.
I've classically been like a pessimistic person. Once again, like traveling to New Zealand, it has changed me. It's made me think about the world differently. It's made me think life of abundance. And I think it's helped me. I left my W-2 in January and here I am. It's changed my life.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I'm your host, Billy Keels, and I'm back once again to share an amazing conversation with you. It's going to be awesome, especially if you're someone who has been in engineering, you're someone who is looking to improve your sales skills and also continue to get out and build and serve others. This is the conversation you're really going to want to listen to. I also want to say thank you to each and every one of you that continue to come back week after week, multiple times a week, listening to the podcast, sharing it with your family and friends, sharing on social media. Really, really appreciate that. Continue to tag us. We will continue to be in touch, and that is always fun. And I would also say, because you're doing that on LinkedIn, you're doing that on Instagram, which is fantastic. Also, for those of you who are looking to find out any of the previous episodes, you want to see the video version, you want to see the transcripts, you want to see anything, just go to firstgencp.com/podcasts, and you can find every single episode we've ever done. I think there's well over 350 some at this point in time. So go check those out. Once again, firstgencp.com/podcasts, and you can check it out. Now, today I mentioned to you before, we have someone who was an engineer by trade, who is going to talk to us about what his path was. This guy's even traveled to all 7 continents, or 5, depending on where you live in the world. But this is going to be a really, really awesome conversation. You're going to find out more about how you can figure out what your path needs to be moving forward, getting the education, getting the coaching, getting the mentoring, and getting to your goals faster. So we're going to have a conversation with the founder of Vestas Capital LLC, Mr. Flint Jamison, and we'll do that just after this. So if you want to understand how mapping your goals early on can send your long distance investing success flying super, super high, then guess what? Today's a conversation you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise you. You know why? Because today's guest, well, not only starting his professional career, it was a design lead for commercial airlines, or commercial airplanes, probably better stated. Really want to find out more about that. He also had experiences as a COO, Chief Operating Officer, as well as business development experiences in other companies. I really want to hear how he's leveraging that today. And he also managed, if the numbers are correct, about $150 million aircraft modification project, which is, I'm sure, adding lots and lots of value today, because it gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation the founder of Vestas Capital LLC, Mr. Flint Jamison. Flint, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Billy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. I'm really looking forward to having you share more of your story. And I just kind of talked about the business stuff, but you and I both love travel. And there's some things that we have in common that I didn't really tell you about earlier, but you know, I really want you to talk about your travel experiences, because you've done something that very, very few people have done in their lives. But anyway, so listen, man, this is all about getting a chance to get to know you, find out how you are out there helping others. But I'm going to ask you 5 questions, Flint. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 in the end. And as long as you're okay, I want to kind of get started with question number 1.
Yeah, let's hit it.
Help us understand, where is it that you call home nowadays?
I live just south of Denver, Colorado.
All right, fantastic. My brother and sister were both born in Denver, just outside of Denver. So that's kind of cool. And question number 2 is, help us understand, what is the most positive thing that's happened to or for you in the last 24 hours?
I just recently closed on a business, out of all things. So I tell people, I used to work my W-2 and my side gig was real estate. Now my primary gig is real estate and side gig is buying some businesses.
It's really weird how that happens, right? You're like, hang on a second, there's all these other options out here. Very cool. So I appreciate you sharing that. Congratulations to you as well.
Thank you.
And would like to jump into your story. So here's the thing, Flint. Everybody knows that is part of the Going Long family that I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I try to do things sometimes that are, well, most people would say are not possible. And that's like trying to tell your entire backstory. And I don't know what I gave myself like a minute, well, like 1.5 seconds, something like that. Was never going to happen. So I need your help. I need you to please share with us your backstory in your own words. And you can take a lot longer than 1.5 seconds to tell that story. The one thing I would ask you, Flint, is while you are telling your backstory, Could you talk to us about some of the major decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey? And then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw in travel in there because, well, you like travel. I like travel. And I typically don't talk about this when I go into my backstory. I graduated college, mechanical engineering degree, worked for 2 years for a robotics company, actually. They worked us to death, underpaid, overworked, and I had to get out. And my get out plan, long story short, I moved to New Zealand for a year. Mm-hmm. I was just backpacking, finding random jobs. And it was honestly the best decision I ever made because I needed to get out. Now, I grind in high school, grind in college, grind in a job. And it was just like, what am I doing? And it opened my eyes to the world. So when I came back, I got a $30,000 raise and got hired at Boeing. It's designing aircraft. It was kind of a dream job. So leaving my career to just travel the world or at least live in New Zealand was one of the best decisions I ever made. I became a different person because of it. Flash forward, worked a bunch of jobs, did aerospace, did manufacturing for aerospace. And then I was back in aerospace, modified aircraft for the Air Force. And then 2018, I bought a duplex. I BRRRR'd it, realized that was a lot of hard work, a lot of money, capital, running solo. It wasn't going to get me to the spot I wanted, found syndications, and haven't looked back since.
Very cool. So very succinct. I'm going to go back though, because I spent some time on the South Island in New Zealand, and it was really kind of cool. I don't know if I came back a different person, but it definitely had a profound impact on me. It was one of the 86 countries I've traveled to, been fortunate enough to travel to. And that was an absolutely fantastic experience. But I guess because travel has had a positive impact on your life, let's say, what was it that took you to New Zealand? Because like you could have pretty much gone anywhere to get the life experience, but why New Zealand?
Yeah. At that robotics job that was burning me out, my mentor at the time, he could see I just needed to do something different and that the job wasn't right for me. And he told me about a friend who moved to New Zealand and was in mechanical engineering, started designing yachts, just found a job being an engineer down there. And I was like, designing yachts sounds fun. I think I'll try that. And so I sold everything. I moved down there and I started applying for jobs. Being a boy from Colorado who's never sailed, no surprise they didn't want to hire me. Knew nothing about boats. Since then, I'm certified sailing. So I've done a lot of sailing since. But I think it was good because I didn't get hired at any engineering company. I applied for like 3 of them. Then I realized all of the backpackers down there do this. They call it a gap year, right? In Europe, yep. It's a very normal thing. The gap year overseas experience, they go travel for a year. Yep. And it's like the working class down in New Zealand. The people that work the vineyards or the odds and ends jobs are people that just looking to travel, and they stay in hostels, they work, they make money, they travel, they work, they make money. And you just meet people from all around the world. I ended up working at a bike shop, set myself up with bike touring equipment and rode the entirety of New Zealand on my bike it was like a month and a half. I had everything I owned on my bike trailer and pedaled from the North Island down to the South Island. I worked on ski lifts during the summer on the South Island. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. So you kind of had a path. You got the idea from someone else that you trusted, and you found someone who had walked a path very similar to yours and decided to go many kilometers, tens of thousands of kilometers away, or miles, excuse me. It's been over 2 decades being over here. So I think that's really, really interesting insight, right? To take that time away. I'm going to do one more thing about travel because I just think it's really cool because you didn't mention this about yourself. And it's something that I've talked about for many times, that I understand you've been able to touch and excuse me for everyone who is outside of the United States, all 7 continents. Is that true? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about how you even were inspired to do that?
After the New Zealand trip, I was bit by the travel bug and just wanted to keep traveling as much as possible. My wife had also, I met her because she lived in New Zealand and Australia for some time. I actually met her a month before I moved down there. So long story short, the stars aligned. We ended up back together in the US. She was up in Seattle. I ended up in Seattle working for Boeing. We got married, and I basically told her, before we have kids, we have to visit all 7 continents. It's just the thing. And then she got to choose where our honeymoon was, and we got to go to Africa. We did Kilimanjaro and Serengeti Safari, which was a pretty epic honeymoon. And then, we ended up in Antarctica. It was like number 6. It wasn't even my last.
Oh, okay.
So you tour down there. Subsequently, fun fact, my wife now works for a company called Leidos. They manage all of the logistics operations for the Antarctic operations, South Pole, wow. McMurdo Station and Palmer Station. The U.S. has 3 stations down there. So she has been back twice since for months on end.
Very cool. So we'll have to talk about that offline, because that's the 7th, the last one that I will place foot on. And yes, for everybody outside of the US, if you think there's 5, then there's 5, and it's no big deal. We can chat about it. Leave all of your comments in the reviews, and all that kind of stuff will be fun. So I appreciate you sharing just a bit of the travel bug and give us more insight into you and the goals that you kind of set for yourself, and then you went out and you achieved those goals. Now, you talked about you BRRRRed it earlier, so there maybe some people don't know what BRRRRing is. So as you got in, that was your very first rental property.
Yep.
It became your first rental property. So you can tell us, if you don't mind telling us, what is BRRRR? And then also too, I'm always interested. Like, you could have picked any asset. Like, why was it real estate, and why did you choose to do BRRRR, and help educate those of us who may not know what BRRRR is?
So first, I'll keep the story short. I tried to do the stock market. I did podcasts and I'm going to hack the stock market. Then I realized it was more emotionally driven than anything. Someone could tweet like Elon and send stock prices go in different directions. So, and then I thought about, you always hear about those people who own lots of real estate and are living off of passive income forever. And I was like, well, maybe I'm going to try that. So I got into that through podcasts, started learning. And eventually, after probably 6 months to a year, I bought a duplex. I knew I wanted to go faster than buying single family homes. And at that time, that was the normal thing. It was buying single family homes was the most known thing. And that's what I went for. The BRRRR is the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's basically fix, flip, and hold. And the goal is you buy a distressed asset. Once you renovate it, you can cash out, refi, hopefully, and get some money back to go buy your next BRRRR. Turns out mine cost so much to renovate, more than anticipated. I ended up just paying up to the value of the home, and there was no equity left to cash out on the refi. So it was all right. I held it for a few years and sold it actually last year in 2022 at the peak. So it worked out.
Very cool. So I appreciate you helping us understand, so you came to real estate after trying other stuff. So it wasn't like you just were like, wow, real estate, and that was it. Because sometimes I know it can feel like people just say real estate. And you mentioned before, the top 85% of the world's rich or wealthy come from real estate or blah, 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 or have it in their portfolio, whatever the case may be. So you got here as a result of trying something else that didn't really work out for you, realized it wasn't really your space, emotional, and then you came into this space. Did the BRRRR, and appreciate you helping us understand exactly what BRRRR is. But then, so you were doing this at the same time you were still working in your corporate role, right?
Yes.
Okay. So 2 things. How did that work, right? Because you now are kind of starting this business. I don't know if you recognized it at the time or if you were just buying a piece of property while you were doing your day job. Talk to us about what that was like, having this kind of property going on at the same time that you were performing and excelling. I'm going to make an assumption at your day job.
Yeah. When you do the single family homes, it's a long game plan of just, you're going to buy property after property, nights and weekends managing it. Actually, this was remote. So it was in Milwaukee and I was in Denver. So I had a team, which is the smart thing. It was lesser of a job, although it was still a job to manage. But it was just about long-term, I'm just going to continue to build the assets. When I discovered syndications, life started changing from there. My perspective on things, my network, and the people I surrounded myself with, I didn't expect this, and I'm going to take this slightly different direction, but The world we live in, the bubble we live in, Billy, with all of the syndicators out there, everybody comes from a different world or a different background, different careers, but everyone is so motivated, driven, willing to help others. It's not a scarcity mindset; it's an abundance mindset. And it actually started changing me because I've classically been like a pessimistic person, and now I'm once again like traveling to New Zealand. It has changed me. This has changed me. It's made me think about the world differently. It's made me think life of abundance, and I think it's helped me create the syndication and the career that I'm now in. I left my W-2 in January, and here I am. It's changed my life.
Well done for achieving another one of the goals, right, that you set out for yourself, being able to exit corporate. And one of the things that you mentioned, so you have you're physically in Colorado. Property that you mentioned before was in Wisconsin. And so most people are like, never do that. Now, when we started this podcast 3 years ago, it seemed a lot less feasible, having gone through what we've gone through around the world. Like, people realize like, hey, you don't actually have to physically be there. But talk to us about some of the less nice upside when it comes to like finding your team or building your team in a place that could be, 1,000 miles or more away.
Yeah. So I found an easy button. I know Bigger Pockets. That's how I learned, to be honest. I was just digesting that. And they had talked about, you got to find all of these players. And I come across this guy who's basically built a service where he's a wholesaler / real estate agent / owns his general contracting company. And then he partners with insurance companies and lenders and stuff. And it was basically like, he provides, hey, here's a property you can buy. It costs, in this case, it was a duplex for $80,000 in Milwaukee. Here's how much it's going to cost to renovate. Here's the projected rents. Like, it was just delivered. And I said, all right, well, this is an easy button for me to build a team. The team's already in place. Let's go. The lesson learned, once again, long story short, there was a arbitrage going on with that duplex with my tenant. Turned out she was running a geriatric Alzheimer's care facility out of my duplex. When I sold it, didn't discover it for 3 years. So my lesson learned here is I gave too much trust into the property management company, and I didn't travel out there to see the property myself at least once a year. I should have done that. Luckily, nothing bad happened, and I got out at the right time, and I made money. So. But my liability was unmatched with my insurance coverage because she was running a geriatric Alzheimer's patient care facility out of a duplex, which one breaks the lease. And she broke the lease from day one, and I didn't know it for 3 years.
And so is that something that you've now incorporated in as part of your diligence? Because you mentioned that.
Now that we're in apartments. Yeah, once you move on from single family homes, now it's a team. You always have someone with boots on the ground. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard for someone to run some Alzheimer's care facility or something extreme out of an apartment. Yes, you can have some tenants that are really bad who are doing drugs. Hopefully your property management's taking care of it, but you do have boots on the ground, whether that's me or someone else. You are constantly monitoring these bigger assets because, well, you have a team of people, and that is your goal, to protect investor money.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to us about, so you decided that, I guess, what was it that you decided? I know you said that, you wanted to move on. You got into syndication. Syndication was great, but talk to us a little bit about the path. And I'll just say this, like, I know that there are, people that are part of investor communities that have hundreds, if not thousands of houses. They really like it. And like, they're literally very, very successful at it, help educate other people to do it. What was it about the single family houses or single family residence versus where you are today that you realized, hey, look, this is probably not the best fit for my skill set and or what I want to be able to achieve?
Yeah, well, where I was, I mean, to build a portfolio of single family homes, you're running solo for a while until it gets big enough to build systems and maybe staffing in place. Homes can be strewn about cities. You don't have it. I mean, if you have a 100-unit apartment building, you have 100 apartments all on one property versus strewn about, an entire town. So economies of scale is better. But really what got me was I was getting $300 per door profit on that duplex. So $600 a month. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And BRRRR, I keep quoting BRRRR, but they were saying, hey, on average, single family home, it's $200 a unit per month on average. And I was like, sweet, I'm getting 300. This is cool. But then you calculate it out, and I needed to do that 50 more times before I could quit my job. So as much as $600 a month sounds good, when you multiply it out, like to replace income, it's not doing much. It's paying utilities. So I was like, man, I don't know. That just ate up all my money because the cash out refi didn't work. And I kind of got the wind taken out of my sails, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. And oddly enough, listening to BRRRR again, I heard a podcast on syndications, and that piqued my interest. It was team driven. I wasn't running solo. I could use other people's money along with my money. There's just so many things, and scalability plus commercial real estate can provide some bigger returns. The valuation isn't based on comps. The valuation is based on more business driven NOI and cap rates. So it's like, man, that's probably the place to be.
So recognizing that for you, this was the place to be, right? Because I heard some of the things that you were talking about were, number one, there were teams, valuations were made more on actual cash production versus how someone feels in the area or comparable sales and these kinds of things. And so for you, you felt like being in that space where there were larger assets, more doors under the same roof, and having an operational team is really what fit with what you were doing. How much of that would you say, Flint, comes from the engineering background that you have?
I didn't think of it like that ever, but you're probably right. Everything I do is team-based. Running solo is hard because you have to be the expert on everything, and you're responsible for everything. And nothing in the world, in corporate world, are you running solo unless you're a solopreneur. I just wanted to team up with other experts, because when you have a team, you can achieve so much more.
Cool. So that makes a lot of sense, I guess, for the Going Long family. Is that as you hear what Flint is talking about, it's really to understand what is the unique skill set that you bring to the table as you're listening to different types of educational opportunities. Which rabbit hole do you really want to go down? Because once you go down that rabbit hole, you're going to be there for a while, and it's how do you ultimately leverage your own time and or the efforts of others, right? In terms of being able to get to your goal. I'm just curious, Flint, because I don't think we talked about this earlier, but what role, if any, has either having, because you talk about team, but having like a formal coach or a formal mentor had in your ability to get closer to your goals much faster?
I've now had three coaches to get here, maybe four.
Mm-hmm. And when you say coaches, are these people that are just dedicating time, or are these people that you're making the investment in yourself so that individuals will coach you?
I invested, right? This is paid coaching. Mm-hmm. And the thing I learned most though is I didn't pay for a $30,000 mentorship to get in, right? Mm-hmm. I paid like $1,200 to watch videos, and I call it the Syndication 101. Learn all about syndication before choosing which mentorship or coach I wanted. And then once I was in, I chose which niche. Now that I understand the grand scheme, which one did I want to dive into? And that's where you pay for coaches. And so I dove there. I actually ended up in capital raising. Long story short, ended up in capital raising based on my first failure, actually. And then after that, I dove into a sales coach. So it's like one step beyond just capital raising. It's dived down. I'm an engineer. I don't know how to do sales. So I got a sales coach. I got a high performance coach now. I mean, just to help me manage myself, manage my mind. It's all these things that you just constantly got to be investing in yourself to make yourself better.
So having that constant mindset of being able to invest in yourself, a lot of people will, and I really love how you were talking about that, because it's an investment, right? It's not necessarily a cost. And depending on where you are in your journey, you're like, yeah, man, but that costs a lot of money. Well, yeah, but if you're not willing to invest in yourself, then the probability of you actually getting to your goals faster, is probably a lot more reduced, right? And so recognizing the importance of that. And I like how you laid that out, right? You wanted to get a general idea of the opportunity that existed in the real estate space. And then from there, you were able to, if I'm understanding you correctly, you realized which space really resonated with you. And then as you went down that rabbit hole, you started finding the experts in that specific area, the coaches. And what was your goal when you had these coaches? I mean, now you're even talking about high performance coaches. Because sometimes we don't think about what is the end game, but you've shown over and over that you're always thinking with the end in mind in terms of being able to not just achieve, but get to your goals faster. So when you thought about your coaches, what was it that you were looking to achieve by having the coaches there with you?
Really, I find the coaches based on where I recognize my weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So like sales, I thought I was okay with sales, but as I was recognizing I'm an engineer. I'm not a classically trained salesperson. I should probably figure this out, and I'm not going to figure it out on my own. But I mean, the long-term goal is exit my W-2. We always talk about financial freedom, but to me, what financial freedom really means is creating more memories. It's traveling with the family. It's giving my kids these worldly experiences, and that's ultimately what I want.
So you get the financial freedom. That's the things that you want. And because I was in corporate enterprise sales for the better part of 2 decades, right? And so some of the things that you're talking about really resonate. But when you talk about the financial freedom, ultimately, it sounds like you really are able to control your time and invest your time with the people that you love the most when you want, where you want.
Yes. And that's where I take it one step further, controlling your time so that you can create memories.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. Are you serious? Like, we already gone so much time. Like, I love talking. I just want to keep talking forever and ever. Listen, we're going to talk a little bit more about, the things that you're doing at Vestas Capital. But before that, we've kind of got to get into the going long final three, because, well, we just have to get into going long final three. And the thing is, Flint, because you're our special guest today, I never ask anyone the going long final three unless you tell me that you're ready. So my question for you is, first and foremost, are you ready?
Yes, let's hit it.
Of course, you were born ready. You've touched all 7 continents, man. Okay, maybe 5, depending on what's going on. Anyway, I just have to have too much fun with that. So very first question. Now, we started with you being over in Colorado. Now, I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, but I've been over here in Europe for the better part of
just
2 decades.
Bought a 94-unit townhome community in Columbus.
Oh, very cool.
Out on the east side.
Okay, over on the east side. All right, cool. I'm from like northeast side, sort of like. We'll talk about that afterwards. So help us understand, because I want to bring things back to this side of the pond. You're extremely well traveled. So I would love for you to share with me and the Go Along family, Flint, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited, which you have, or is still on your bucket list to visit?
So I think my favorite was actually, we had a 5-day layover on our honeymoon to get to Africa for Kilimanjaro and Serengeti. We ended up in Switzerland, and that whole Jungfrau region was just phenomenal. I mean, I'm a mountain type person. I love climbing mountains, skiing mountains, and Jungfrau was just with the Eiger. It's just phenomenal.
No, it's a very, very beautiful place. It's a very beautiful place. Very beautiful place. So we'll take the region. We'll take the Jungfrau region. That works. Question number 2. And this is one of the things that, and you were started to tell us a little bit earlier, but, a lot of the times as you're providing value to others, positive value, and you are moving things in the right direction, well, it's probably because things early on when you got started didn't work as in the way that you wanted. You made some mistakes. You had some learning opportunities, and you paid full price for those, right? So I don't really want you to focus on, and I don't want the story about what didn't work or why it didn't work. But what I found is that people that are very successful, when something doesn't work, they take the moment to really understand like what went wrong. And then from there, they put different strategies, tactics, and actions in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening again. So I guess my question for you is, if you can think of one lesson that you learned as a result of a failure event or a learning opportunity, what's the one lesson that you know that needs to be shared with the Going Long family today?
To be honest, well, on that failure, I didn't follow my gut, but I want to give something a little more actionable out of this. And I'm going to take it away from the failure, but from, I feel like I held myself back from success because I didn't take action soon enough. And in this realm, as an engineer, I was trying to understand everything to too much level of expertise. I was trying to this is a perfectionist problem. You want to understand everything and be an expert in everything, but you can't. It's not possible. This is why we team up. And it wasn't, had I taken action sooner, knowing that I would team up with people that were complementary to my skills, I could be in a much different place than I am right now. So, and sometimes you just got to take action because you're never going to know everything. You just have to accept that.
All right. So being able to take action sooner, and yeah, for sure you would be in a different place. We don't know what that place is, but definitely would be a different place today. So appreciate you sharing that with me. And then lastly, it's about being able to help to fill our minds with knowledge, Flint. And so I'd love for you to share with us, what's one book that you would recommend today to the Going Long family?
So the book I'm reading right now, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by, I'm going to screw up his name. It's Vishen Lakhiani.
Mm-hmm.
The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. It's, I just think he takes you to a different place where to think differently. This is all about mindset, how to think differently about goals, because the way we set goals in the classic sense isn't healthy for us to actually go achieve goals. There's a lot of things out there like the 10X. You aren't setting big enough goals. And if you set too big of goals, you're just going to be upset because you never make those goals happen. And it's just like he kind of normalizes things, and he puts some science behind it and how the mind works just to help you be a better person.
Okay, awesome. So The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, we'll make sure that we include that in the show notes. So don't worry if you're running on the treadmill or swimming or something like that. All you have to do is click and go back and check out more about the book that Flint is suggesting that you pick up. And you know what? I think about all this kind of stuff and I think to myself, we've got a conversation that's just flown by. Started with a mechanical engineer who was really trying to, I guess, was underpaid and overworked. That kind of rings a bell for a lot of us that spent time in corporate. But this guy, he actually did something very differently. After he worked for a while, he had a really good business, manager, coach, advisor that recognized he was probably a little bit burned out. He's probably not enjoying himself as much as he wanted. And not only did he do that, he talked to him about someone who had the same role and took some time off and went to New Zealand. And guess what this guy did? He went to New Zealand, went down there, hung out for a year. It was really, really awesome.
I took action. I just did it.
He took action. There you go. He took action.
Come full circle.
You realize that, hey, listen, this was the thing that worked. But then at the same time, you also wanted to take more control of your destiny, right? And so he decided to say, hey, listen, I want to try some new things outside of my 9 to 5. I like my 9 to 5, but hey, listen, let me try this stock market thing. You know what? Doesn't work as much as I thought, as scientifically as I thought. It seems like there's a lot of emotion here. And so at the same time, you had the opportunity to make an investment. And so you made an investment and you were in something that you could actually control, you could understand, you tested it, you realized, you know what, this single family stuff is not really where I like to continue to lay my head, if you will. But because I have this certain skill set and I have this certain desire, and I've come across a different area, which is commercial residential real estate. And it's about being able to team, which is something that you'd also done in your previous life or were doing at the exact same time. It made a lot more sense for you. And so not only have you continued to do that and continue to build and continue to grow, but you're also helping others to do that. And so I know that the Going Long family is like, Billy, just ask him the question. So here's what I'm going to ask you. What is the best way, Flint, for the Going Long family to find out more about you, more about what you've got going on at Vestas Capital LLC, so they can continue to get the education, continue to learn, and continue to grow? Help us understand. What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah. So the quick pitch here, though, is what is Vestas Capital? So I mentioned I'm a capital raiser. I partner with expert operators around the country. The reason being, I fell into this just serendipitously, but you want to invest with the person that's an expert in their niche, like the Class B value add asset in Dallas Fort Worth. They've done 20 of them. Yeah, that's the person you want to invest with. That's if the only person you know, that's the only investment you're doing is Class B value add assets in Dallas Fort Worth. So I want to diversify. I love to diversify. I love to bring my friends and family investors. It could be self-storage. It could be Columbus, Ohio. And now I'm doing built to rent. So if you'd like to get a hold of me, find me at investwithflint.com, where you can go to Vestas Capital, but Invest with Flint is memorable.
All right. Investwithflint.com. Find out more. I'm sure you've got ways to contact you there and be in touch and learn and get the education, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And, Flint, I would just like to say thank you very much on behalf of the entire Going Long family for you deciding to invest your time with me and with us today. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Billy.
All right. Awesome. Hey, Flint, can you give me like 12 seconds? I just want to chat with the Going Long family and then I'll give you your time back. So listen, everybody, Flint shared it. He talked about his travels. He talked about the way his path as he was in corporate and also how he's now helping others to gain more education. Talked about his mentoring, his coaching experiences. And so one of the things I would suggest is that you continue to go from the theory that he's talking about into practice. So take today's conversation, share it with 2 or 3 other friends. Heck, get on the phone or get on a Zoom and talk about the concepts. And you know what? You can even reach out to Flint because I'm sure he would love to chat with you. He's even told you how you can get in touch with him. So while you're doing that, I'll be here preparing for the next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.